that magical game on Saturday night in front of a national audience, the legend of Sal Frelick was born. So obviously, you already know how that went. Perfect night at the plate, made a couple of incredible grabs in the outfield. So just a lot of interest in him now, and this kind of energy that even on Sunday, you know, every time he stepped up to the plate now, he's sort of like a cult hero in like 2 games. So it's fun how, you know, you can come out of the gates like that as a prospect and suddenly have everybody behind you. But let's just dive into the questions, because as I mentioned, we've got a ton. And let's just start with Corey Diedrich's question here, asking, is Frelick's debut the best in Brewers history? The only thing he didn't do was walk on Lake Michigan as he left the stadium. So this, of course, caused the guys to kind of do some quick research and Googling and find some names of Brewers past to try to see if we could match that kind of effort. So I guess, Ryan, let's start with you. Who are some of the names, some of the debuts that come to mind?
Yeah, so for me, I immediately thought of a couple pitchers that popped right into mind. And the first one is clearly, it's Freddie Peralta, because not only did he make his debut on Mother's Day, and I think his mom was there for the first time to see him pitch as a professional. She had made her way up. So the family was there to watch him pitch. And he's at Coors Field, so you're expecting fireworks, and it's going to be bad. And he was young and pretty untested, and this was kind of an emergency start situation. And he ends up going 5 2/3 shutout, striking out 13. I mean, he got 17 outs, and 13 of them were strikeouts. And it was sort of a knock your socks off introduction where you went, oh, this kid is maybe going to be really, really good. Like this has the potential to be really, really good for them. At a point when it wasn't even necessarily clear in terms of prospect status. He was ascendant, and everybody was kind of paying attention to him. If you followed prospects, you knew who he was. But that was sort of an eye-opening thing, and the first thing that popped to mind. And then the other one that I thought of right away was Chris Saenz. And I'm fairly certain I was in the ballpark for that one. But this is a legendary thing. JR has written about this on the JS, and you can go look this up. He in 2004 made his only big league appearance, and then he got injured afterwards. But he pitched against, oh, hold on, I have it. He pitched against the Cardinals, I believe it was, and threw 6 shutouts, 7 strikeouts. Back when 7 strikeouts was a pretty big deal, and then got hurt and never pitched in the big leagues ever again. So those were the two that instantly popped right into my mind. But I didn't really find any hitters. It's harder to do with hitters. We tried looking some of those things up, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Paul, you have some stuff.
Yeah, so hitters are tough. A lot of people struggled. I think the other good one is Steve Woodard, who pitched his debut was the first game of a doubleheader against the Toronto Blue Jays in 1997, and threw 8 innings of 1-hit shutout baseball. So it honestly doesn't get much better than that. I'm actually frantically trying to scramble and find the hit real quick. But Steve Woodard was a pretty good prospect and actually had a decent career for the team, and didn't really live up to like this. But he was a good, solid player for the team for a long time, and his debut was absolutely outstanding. Like, first of all, the opposing pitcher against Steve Woodard, 8 innings pitched, 1 hit, 12 strikeouts, 1 walk. Does not get much better than that in 119 pitches. Defeated Roger Clemens 1-0 in his debut. Mike Fetters got the save. That's a pretty good debut. Honestly, that's probably one of the few that does rival what we just saw. And also, in a kind of an unusual little bit there, I think it helped them win game 2, which was a bit of a blowout. They went 9-3, but they had everybody available for game 2 in that game. I guess Clemens went the full game too, so he did too. But it's nice to save your bullpen for the second game of the doubleheader. The Brewers would actually sweep that 4-game series against the Blue Jays. So he got them off to a good start. They did really, really well. And Woodard was, fine, good, not this good, but good.
Yeah, you remember who they traded him for, right?
I do not at all.
That was Richie Sexson. That's how they got Richie Sexson.
Oh, okay.
And that was because Cleveland had such a terrible time. Remember, they could develop hitting like it just constantly. They had hitters coming out of their ears. Brian Giles was also developed in that time period, and he got traded. But Sexton was developed, and they traded him for the best young pitcher they could find that was sort of available there. And if I'm not mistaken, Steve Woodard shows up in the Mitchell report, right?
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
Oh,
Woodard.
goodness.
Yeah, Steve Woodard shows up in the Mitchell report. So,
Well, that's a good way to beat Roger Clemens, honestly. Even playing field, right?
yeah, it's exactly. That was the height of it right there. I mean, it doesn't get much more steroid era than like summer of 1997. So, that's kind of that in 97, 98. That's sort of the pinnacle of it. So, yeah. But moving on, so like hitters. The one we started checking like the big names to see what they had done, and we didn't find a good debut. But Paul Molitor in his second game drove in 5 runs against the Orioles. That would have been April 8th, 1978. So in his second game, he drove in 5 runs, had 3 hits. Actually, his second and third game, he had 3 hits apiece in each of those games, including his first big league homer that he had in the second game. So he kind of came out of the gates hot there, which you'd expect. He was a college guy, a well-developed hitter. Like, for him to hit the ground running is not a surprise in any way, shape, or form.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's tough to look up at those hitters too. Like, we were frantically checking Baseball Reference, trying to find a good way to search that.
Yeah, the only other one I could find that wasn't necessarily good, but it was interesting, was Pat Listach's first game. He did not actually record an at bat, but he pinch ran and stole a base, which is a very Pat Listach way to start off his career.
Now, was that in 92 or was it in 91? Did he get called up in September of 91?
It was in 92. It was
he actually came
April
up.
8th of 1992 in a 9-5 win over the Twins.
Interesting.